This is American First Patriot Podcast. Defending freedom and liberty is our motto. We put God first and politics second. I'm your Patriot host, Chauncey Brown. Welcome to the show. Tonight we have the blue-collar worker, the concrete layer from Arizona running for governor. Part 2 is today. We're going to be talking about some of the issues that are facing the people of Arizona. Without any further ado, let me welcome into the studio gubernatorial candidate for Arizona, Scott Neely.
Hey, how's it going, Chauncey?
How you doing, buddy? I know you're still out there working.
I'm out putting signs up all over the place. I just sent you some text messages of the signs.
Okay, awesome. Well, we're going to do a short show today. I have a few questions I want to ask you for the public. In your opinion, what is the biggest issue right now that is facing Arizona?
The border being open to illegal invaders walking in by the millions, and a government unwilling to follow the laws that it has set forth. It's pretty sad. Creating two classes of people, the illegal invader class and the American class. And the illegal invader class doesn't have to follow laws, but the American class does. The illegal invader class doesn't have to have a driver's license or car insurance, but the American class does. The illegal invader class doesn't have to have a contractor's license, but they can go out and do plenty of jobs. An American does. They even have banks that loan to illegals. They give I-10 numbers, which is ITIN numbers, to illegals. They operate their lives as if it's a Social Security card off an I-10 number. It's quite unbelievable.
Yeah, I've never heard of that one before. It's
been going on for decades. It's called an ITIN number, okay? And it's something illegals use like it's a social. Essentially, it allows them to run a business because you can get an I-10 number for a business. Well, they basically set up businesses and get I-10 numbers. A lot of the contractors will basically 1099 them through the I-10 number. And it'll get the general contractor, that liability or that tax liability off of his back, and then it puts it on the illegal's back. But if the illegal doesn't go file taxes, or if the illegal doesn't go file the right amount, then what are we going to do about it? We really can't enforce laws against them. I mean, if we pull them over, the city managers of all the cities always tell them to let them go. Just let them go. They don't have a license. They get in a wreck. Like, for example, one crashed into the side of my son's friend's car a few months back and gave my son a concussion and him a concussion and destroyed the car, and they only had liability. Not the illegal invaders, but my son's friend had liability. So it covered their car and it covered their injuries, and that's pretty much about it. It didn't cover the car that my son's friend was driving because he didn't have full coverage. The illegal had no coverage. He had no insurance at all. And the police, of course, let him go. I mean, this two classes of people they've set up, it puts the illegal invaders and the Americans at odds with each other. Okay? It's not good. It's divisive. And it's not a color, not a sex, it's not a gender, because they're coming in from China, Russia, South America, Mexico, Colombia, Cuba, everywhere. They're coming from 140 countries. It has nothing to do with race. I remember years ago, we were enforcing a law we had passed here, which mirrors federal government law. It was pushed through by Russell Pierce when he was the president of the Senate here in Arizona State House. And Jan Brewer, our governor at the time, signed it into law. She's the one that pointed the finger at Obama on the tarmac. And Obama wasn't doing his job either. He wasn't keeping illegal invaders from coming in. So we passed a law here called SB 1070, which allowed us to use our sheriff's departments sort of as the sort of a border patrol for our state, to protect our state. So Sheriff Joe, he had enough gall to step up and do his job based on SB 1070 being law. And again, it mirrored federal law and it allowed for us on the state level to use sheriffs to make arrests and do deportations because states have their own rights, States have the ability to protect themselves. It's set up in the Constitution. So I don't understand why more states aren't stepping up to protect themselves. Texas is doing some of that. They've stepped up. New Mexico is doing nothing, and California is doing nothing. They're just allowing them to pour in. This has to stop. Having two classes of people here has to stop. And then all the sex trafficking that goes along with it. Tons of sex trafficking. It all goes along with the illegal invaders. It all goes hand in hand.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you about next.
Even child sex trafficking. They're doing child sex trafficking. It's disgusting.
Sad.
Not just women, it's children too. It's sick.
So the increase...
It needs to stop.
Amen. So in other words, crime has increased as a result of these illegals pouring into the border.
That's right. I've watched things get more and more dangerous as the decades have passed by during the time I've lived my life. I'm 41. I grew up with a lot of illegal invaders. I grew up in California. 30% of my graduating class at the time were illegal invaders. I'm not going to say they were all bad people. There was a lot of good people in there. But there was bad ones too. And green who comes in will have more good ones and less bad ones. And isn't that what a country that practices law and order would practice? I think so. I was raised in American history to believe that about law and order. And yet we're not doing that anymore. It's like law and order's just been thrown out. And
it's like
my wife produced a video on my website about the child and women sex trafficking, and it's disgusting. I mean, I would go to neelyforgovernor.com and take a look at that because it's wrong what's going on. I mean, and when Trump said years ago, you know, they're rapists or this or that, yeah, some of the people that come through are rapists. Some of them are pedophiles. Some of them are trafficking children or women for sex. It's happening. And people turn a blind eye to it because they say, oh, that can't be happening. Yes, it's happening. My first priority as governor would be to enforce SB 1070 and empower the sheriffs in Arizona to do their job on the state level and ignore the FBI and the feds, because the FBI and the feds cannot stop us from protecting our own state. Are you gonna tell me on the federal level you're gonna start arresting our sheriffs? I don't think so. And if that's what they think they can do, bring it. Try to arrest our sheriffs. I dare you. Bring it. If somebody doesn't stand up now, we're going to lose our country. We're going to be overrun. We're going to be swamped by illegal invaders, by the millions. And we've already had millions come in the last year and a half.
We're going to take a quick commercial break, and we're going to be back with gubernatorial candidate for governor of Arizona, Scott Neely.
On day one, as your governor, I will deploy the Arizona National Guard to the border, and I will begin construction on 3 strategic National Guard border barracks so that we can maintain a permanent presence on the Arizona-Mexico border.
Vote Neely for governor in the August 2nd primary election. Paid for by Neely for Arizona.
Well, welcome back to American First Patriot Podcast. Defending freedom and liberty is our motto. We put God first and politics second. In the studio, we have the blue-collar gubernatorial candidate for governor of Arizona, Scott Neely, in the studio. You're talking to a constituent on the road, Scott?
You there? Hello?
Scott is on the road, so he's actually putting up signs. I guess he's talking to a potential constituent.
Yeah, I'm talking to a wonderful precinct committee woman named Barbara Nadal who's helping push my name out there. And I just dropped her off a couple yard signs.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I got to go, Barbara, because I'm on a podcast. But I'll call you later. All right. Okay, I'm back.
Scott, where do you stand on the Second Amendment rights?
Well, here's the thing. It's an absolute right given to us in the Constitution. An absolute right. It's no different than what's been given to us in the Constitution to have our individual rights and our property rights. It's one of the major rights in our Constitution. It shall not be infringed. I shall not allow it to be infringed. Now, Arizona, we're very lucky because a few years back we passed the most lenient, lax law, enforcing our constitutional right to carry in this state. In this state, you can do a background check within a few minutes. You can carry a gun completely concealed without a permit, or you can carry it unconcealed without a permit, or you can get a permit if you want to, but you don't have to, not in this state. Gun rights here are absolute in this state, and they're always going to remain that way. We don't have red flag gun laws, and I, as governor, I'm going to ensure and shore up the fact that we're never going to have red flag gun laws. Now, though I agree with everything pretty much Ron DeSantis has done in his state, one thing I don't agree with is he did sign into legislation red flag gun laws. I do not agree with that, and I honestly do not know why Ron DeSantis would have signed a bill like that, but he did. So with that exception, he's been the best governor in the United States, with that exception. So we will not have red flag gun laws here. Red flag gun laws, what that means is an ex-wife can say, hey, he owns guns, he's got a temper, he's got an attitude, and I think you should go take him. And then the cops get a warrant from a judge, and then they come and take your – actually, no, they don't even get a warrant. They can literally come take your guns. They can come knock on your door, take your guns under the red flag laws, and then you have to go to court later and have it adjudicated later as to whether or not you're a threat and whether or not you're going to get your guns back. So they take the guns first and you get them back later. I don't agree with that. I don't ever want that to happen here. More good guys have guns, we have less crime. Less good guys have guns, we have more crime.
Agreed. Absolutely. You've had problems in your state with water. What would your water policy look like when you become governor?
It'd be three-pronged. We would have a three-pronged water policy. Number one, we would build a desalinization plant, and we would build that not in Mexico, as others that I am running and campaigning against have said, but we will build it in Yuma, Arizona, because we do have one there now. Again, like I said before, it was built in 92 by the Army Corps of Engineers. We'll make that facility bigger, and then we'll use better technology for filtering so we can filter seawater instead of farmers' water. It was built for the farming community over there. But we're going to use what we have existing and build upon it. We're going to save money that way. It's going to be more economically feasible that way. And we'll pipe the water in from Mexico, and it's going to be a lot less expensive because we're piping in salt water. We're not piping in clean water. Then the chances of them poisoning it, knowing we're going to desal it, are pretty low. The chances of them taking it or stealing it or breaking a hole in the pipe to try to steal it's pretty low because it's salt water. And I think it's more common sense to do it that way. It's not too long of a distance to pipe it from the Sierra Cortez. It's a straight shot to Yuma. We're talking about a 120-mile straight shot. It's a lot better than piping it in from San Diego. That'd be probably 300 miles. So it's the right thing to do. We've already earmarked $80 million towards that project, and we can use that $80 million towards the pipeline. And forget about building a desal plant in Mexico. Again, we're going to do that in Yuma, Arizona, provide American jobs. So that's one prong. Second prong is we have the Harquahelas, which is a giant, very deep, old water resource underground. It's Jurassic water. It's so old. And it's been under there for a millennia. And it's the equivalent of 3 Lake Powell's if they were filled up to the top. It would provide a 500-year water supply just to the Phoenix metro area alone, just that. And that's not the only aquifers we have underground in Arizona. We have that aquifer. We have one up by Pine, Arizona. And both of them are brackish, meaning they're a mixture of certain layers of the water is salty and certain layers of the water is clean. So it is salty, but it's not as salty as ocean water. So it would be more like the desal plant we have in Yuma currently. So we'd use that kind of technology to desal with it. And it wouldn't be as expensive to do so. It'd be a lot less expensive. And we have a giant water source there that we can use. The third prong is we get back to logging in the forests. Right now what's happening is a lot of the forests are sucking up a lot of our water out of our aquifers. And a lot of the trees are too close together, so they're sharing that water source. What's happening is the snowpack gets there, and it's soaking into the trees rather than soaking into the ground and going into the aquifer. So if you go back 150 years, we had 11 ponderosa pines per acre, plus we had a lot less organic waste back then. Now we have a ton of organic waste everywhere, which is bushes and shrubs and things and grass. And then we have a ton of trees. We have 1,100 per acre now. We need to chop at least half of that out of the way, turn it into profit. We can log that timber, use that timber logging profit or the tax on that to fund some teachers in the schools because the teachers need better pay. Mm-hmm. And then in addition to that, we would increase our water supplies by 10% just by logging out half the trees. And then the trees would become healthier that remain because what happens is bark beetles gets in trees when they don't have enough water. When you have too many trees feeding off the same water source, they tend to dry out, and then the bark beetles get in the pine trees, and they're like termites. They destroy the tree. And then it's not even any good as timber. And then when the wind blows pretty hard, those fall down in the forest, and they become a hazard for the people and the animals that walk through there when they fall. So these are common sense water solutions that I have for the state of Arizona. And I've been told we should do the Missouri and the Mississippi and we should pipe it in from there. But, man, that's a long ways to pipe in from. And I don't think that's a solution that we could do quickly. I think that's a solution that would take 20, 30 years. We need to focus on the solutions we can deal with now right here in the state. And then maybe we'll focus on that as a long-term plan. But in the short term, we can't focus on that because it's too big of an interstate project. It's something we would have to negotiate with multiple states, and it would cost hundreds of billions of dollars. Hundreds of billions. So that's water.
Awesome. Mm-hmm. We're going to take another quick commercial break, and we're going to be back with the blue-collar worker, gubernatorial candidate running for governor, Scott Neely.
I want to be your infrastructure governor. Now, I've been involved in infrastructure construction throughout Arizona during the last 17 years. I've traveled more than 500,000 miles across Arizona roads, and I've watched the roads decay over the last 17 years. Rural communities need special attention with infrastructure dollars, and as your infrastructure dollar watchdog, I want to make sure that your tax dollars are spent on the right projects in the right places.
Vote Neely for governor in the August 2nd primary election. Paid for by Neely for Arizona.
Welcome back to American First Patriot Podcast. Defending freedom and liberty is our motto. We put God first and politics second. We're honored and proud to have in the studio the blue-collar worker, the concrete guy from Arizona, the people's candidate running for governor, Scott Neely. Scotty, I'd like to ask you to talk about your border policy as governor. We talked a little bit about it in the beginning. Can you expound upon your border policy? Or what would it look like?
Okay, sure. Let's expand upon my border policy. So I've been building the border wall for the last 17 years, and I propose that when I become governor, I'll declare a declaration of invasion, and then I will begin to start building the border wall. The Arizona legislature just put $544 million aside for border wall security and construction. And of the $544 billion, we can use $544 million. Of the $544 million, we can use $244 million for actual border wall construction. That's what it's earmarked for. And then what we can do is the steel sitting at Stinger Steel in Coolidge, Arizona, a lot of that steel was actually for Governor Greg Abbott's wall, but he's failed to come pick it up. He talks tough about building his wall, and he's not coming up to pick the steel up that was contracted for his wall. So what we can do is we can have Stinger Steel lean that border wall material. Then I, as governor, can purchase it from Stinger Steel for 10 cents on the dollar. I mean, it's already been paid for once, but I can purchase that steel from Stinger Steel for 10 cents on the dollar after they've leaned it and they become the property owner. And then we can truck it to the wall and begin to start building on sections of wall that are Arizona state-owned land. At some point, I got to negotiate with the federal government because the federal government owns 46% of all the land in the state of Arizona. And a lot of that is on the border. So by design, it's tough in certain spots to put a border wall because the feds won't allow it right now because Trump's no longer in office. So we're going to have to do technology in certain sectors where we can't build the wall, virtual fences, drone technology, facial recognition technology, seismic technology driven into the ground so that we know where they're tunneling under. And I also propose that we build 3 strategic National Guard border barracks, one in Yuma, one in Douglas, one in Nogales. Those are the high traffic areas. And we'll also build Guantanamo, Arizona. And Guantanamo, Arizona will be giant tent cities next to the border barracks, the National Guard border barracks. And what we're going to do is we're going to have a door in the wall next to the tent city. They can walk back into Mexico and then go back to their home country at any time. Or they can remain in the tent city indefinitely until such time that Joe Biden's administration has adjudicated them and allowed them to come in legally. Whether they come in legally as a refugee or what have you, but they've got to be adjudicated and brought in legally. And I will hold them indefinitely in those tents. And trust me, in the summer it's going to be hot. In the winter it's going to be cold. Sheriff Joe's tent city was no joke. And Guantanamo, Arizona is going to be no joke as well. It will be unpleasant. It will be uncomfortable. But the easiest path for them will be to go back over the wall or to go back through the wall. And there's going to be a door in the wall there for them. And if they choose to go back, we'll let them go back. We're not going to hold them hostage if they want to go back. But we will hold them in the tents indefinitely until such time they're adjudicated. And then we'll send the bill for that to the federal government. The government can pay to house and feed the illegal invaders. Because as governor of Arizona, I am not willing to sit there and foot the bill for a problem that the federal government themselves is creating by getting rid of Title 42 remain in Mexico and by not shoring up the wall themselves, shoring up the border themselves. They need to hire more Border Patrol agents. They need to put National Guard on the border across the country. They need to step it up. They're not doing their job. The feds don't care. It's almost as if they're working side by side with the cartels to bring in people and drugs. It's just sickening. You'd almost think Joe Biden's a drug dealer. I mean, in the way he operates, he's helping the cartel more than anybody's ever helped the cartel, Joe Biden. It's crazy. And then we have a guy running for governor here who used to work for Obama and for the Department of Homeland Security named Marco Lopez. He worked in that Fast and the Furious program running guns into Mexico. The purpose of the program was to decipher who these cartel people were and arrest them or whatever, but that never happened. All they did was essentially sell guns to the people in Mexico and not actually bust anybody. Pretty pathetic. We need to do something. We need to act fast. I can't act until I take office and I've sworn the oath to protect this state. And I've sworn my allegiance to the Constitution of the United States of America, which I will do in January when I'm sworn in. And I'm very confident I'm going to win the primary, and I'm going to go on to win the general election. I'm very confident in that. I have faith, and I have faith that Jesus is going to put me in that office so that I can do what I know needs to be done, and I can do what I know others won't do, which is defend our state, our people, and our way of life before we lose it, because we're on the cusp of losing our Arizona and our America, and something needs to be done now or we won't have anything to call home, and we will become the refugees, and we will be the invaders invading other countries looking for a better place to live. And there isn't a better place than the United States of America to live. Even now, with everything we're going through, there is not a better place to live than right here in the good old U.S. of A.
Absolutely. We're going to take another quick commercial break, and we're going to be back with gubernatorial candidate, the blue-collar worker from Arizona, Scott Neely.
Another important issue facing Arizona is election integrity. And regardless of how you feel about past elections, we must move forward with legislation that ensures that our voting system is safe and fair, because that's the only way we can restore the Arizona Republic.
Vote Neely for governor in the August 2nd primary election. Paid for by Neely for Arizona.
Welcome back to American First Patriot Podcast. Defending freedom and liberty is our motto. We put God first and politics second. I'm your Patriot host, Chauncey Brown. Scott, I know that you have a very busy schedule tonight, so we're going to ask you one more question about education. What are your plans to improve the educational system in Arizona?
Well, first of all, I'm going to, as Arizona governor, work with the legislature to defund the Arizona Department of Education. We don't need it. It's a bloated administrative state that sits there and just sucks money for nothing. We can let the school districts handle the state's educational priorities. We don't need the Arizona Department of Education sitting there sucking up dollars, sending people on expensive vacations, and paying people expensive, exuberant amount of salaries, and then having multiple administrators working there. We don't need it. So I would work with the legislature to come up with a law that essentially gets rid of the Arizona Department of Education. And I would work to eradicate Common Core. We don't need Common Core. Common Core is not working. I watched Common Core and how it worked. It didn't work. My son's very smart, very intelligent, but they don't even write in cursive. I mean, what is that? I mean, Common Core got rid of cursive writing. So you go down to get a driver's license and you print your name because you can't write in cursive because you were in school for 12 years and never taught to write in cursive. Thank God my sons are great at arithmetic, math, and reading and all the other things. But, man, it would have been very nice if they could have learned to write in cursive, and they didn't get to learn that. And I think that's pretty terrible, if you ask me. And I think we need to bring back cursive. We need to bring back American history, and we need to bring back American patriotism. And I think the way to do that is to defund the bureaucracy. Because what's happening is the bureaucracy is what's infecting our children's minds. The bureaucracy sits there getting paid exorbitant amounts of money, and they just sit there twiddling their thumbs, figuring out ways to just completely mess with our children's minds in so many negative ways. That needs to stop. We need to go back to how it was when you were a kid, when I was a kid, when it was just about academics. It wasn't about social experimenting. It was just about academics. If you wanted to be socially experimented on back in your time, in the 60s, let's say, you'd go to college for that. And if you wanted to be subjected to social experiments, you go to college. Otherwise, you probably didn't go to college. You probably were working in the trades like you were and like I was. But right now they're doing social experiments all the way down to elementary school level, middle school level, high school level. They're really messing with our kids, and that needs to stop. Gender ideology and race ideology needs to be taken out of schools. We're all one race. We're all human. We're all God's children. It's just some of us have more of a tan than others. So what? Who cares? That doesn't matter.
That's right.
We're sovereign people, and we're all Americans, and we got to stop teaching hate. Hate has to go away. We got to get back to just academics. We're not able to compete with the children in China and Japan and in so many other countries, Israel, because we're not focusing on academics. We're focusing on social experiments. That has to stop. And I think cutting back the administrators would help a lot. I think with even in the different school districts, we need to cut back the administrators because you have a superintendent and you have like 12 assistant superintendents. That's ridiculous. And then at a high school, like where my sons go, you have a vice principal, and then you've got, you have a principal, and then you've got 5 vice principals. These are they're just making photocopies of each administrator and bringing new administrators in that'll get great pensions when they get done being an administrator for their last 3 or 4 years if they're in the school system. It's a way for them to bring all their good old boy friends into making more money for their pension before they finish, being an educator. Maybe they were a teacher for 15, 17 years, and then the last 3 years they get thrown in as a vice principal so they could get better pay and build themselves a bigger pension. Rather than giving the teachers a raise, Arizona's got some of the lowest paid teachers. I mean, I see on the billboards on the freeway, Texas and California are advertising trying to take our Arizona teachers and pay them more because they pay them more in those states. Arizona needs to get with the times and get competitive, but the only way to do it is cut back on bureaucracy and use that money that you've saved to actually pay the teachers, and then that money will filter into the classroom and get to the children. I'm tired of hearing the teachers don't have money to buy pencils and erasers and this and that and pens and you name it. They don't have the money, and the school's not providing it. And I don't understand why. They've got 56% of every dollar spent in Arizona's budget is schooling. So if schools are sucking up more than roads, bridges, and infrastructure by far at 56% of all funding for the state, I think that's a problem. I think there's enough money in it. It's just not going to the right places. I think we could cut it back by $5 billion and still have more than enough money if it went to the right places. But it's just not doing that.
Thank you so much, Scott, for taking time out of your busy schedule. I know you worked all day today, probably doing the concrete, and now you're out putting up signs. Yep. The election is next week. Would you like to,
Tuesday.
This Tuesday. Would you like to leave some closing remarks, please?
Yeah, I would. I would like the Arizona people to consider voting for a blue-collar, hands-on worker, for a white-collar office guy who can read a balance sheet, type 70 words a minute, and balance his own books, a guy who can build websites and do online marketing. And, I'm a layered candidate. I'm like an onion. I have so many layers. I have so many experiences. I'm a mechanic. I'm a concrete guy. I'm a businessman. I'm a salesman. I've done every aspect of the business and then some. And I've worked for people in the past. I've not just worked for myself. I've also had jobs, too. I've had to be, in certain times in my life, during recessions, I've had to be humbled and go work for somebody else. Sometimes you have to do that. But I know what it takes to survive. I've survived 2 recessions in my life, the one around September 11th and then the one back in 2009 during Obama. And I'm getting ready to go into another recession. We're in it now, according to the news. I knew that we were in it 2 months ago, but people didn't believe me. But we are in a recession. I'm getting ready to survive this one. And I'm the best candidate to help the people survive a recession because I've survived 2 of them, and I've been successful. I've came out of them without filing bankruptcy. I've been able to be good with my money. I've been able to take a dollar and stretch it. And I think that's what's necessary in leadership is take a dollar and stretch it. Stop trying to add dollars to the problem. How about cut the amount of dollars we spend back and stretch the dollars that we do have? How about save the taxpayers some money, especially in a time like this when we're going into a major recession? I hear the federal government's trying to raise taxes right now as we're going into a recession, as the Fed just raised the interest rate 75 basis points again today, which is 0.75 of a percentage point. We're going to have 9% to buy a home probably by next week. This is crazy. Not heard of since Jimmy Carter. We have a big storm coming, and we need somebody who's weathered storms. Not an elitist who's never had to go through a storm, but a middle-class man with a street view of what's going on who's weathered many and who's ready to weather that new storm coming and weather it with you, the people of Arizona. My heart is in this to do what's right for the people. I'm not in it to make money. I actually lost money running. My personal net worth has dropped just to run, and I'm not even a rich guy. But I did it for Jesus. I did it for the people. I did it for you. Because I'm the man for a time such as now. Lead us in a hard time that we're getting ready to go through. I don't believe that a bureaucrat and Katie Hobbs, or a celebrity apprentice and Carrie Lake, or a billionaire lawyer and Karen Taylor Robson is the answer to what Arizona is facing right now. But I do believe me, Scott, my middle name's David. So I say again, Scott, David versus Goliath, Neely is the man that will lead us through this hard time that we're getting ready to go through. And we're going to come out the other side stronger for it and better for it. And we're going to have more skills because I am going to build trade schools. We're going to build back up our American workforce. We're going to make men men again. And we're going to recognize talents that women have that are different than men's. And we're going to utilize those. And we're going to build upon that as well. We're going to unite our people. And we're going to unite our state. We're going to unite both parties. And we're going to do everything that's right for the people. The people are number one. Me, I'm going to be a politician if I get in there. I'm not going to operate like one, but I'm going to be one. Legally, I'll be a politician if I'm governor. But I will be the first politician in history who does not do it for the money. I'm going to do it for you, the people. And I don't want to get anything for it. All I want to do is show that there is a way to run things differently and better if we get the people who have a street view in the middle class on board with running governments, because that's how the Constitution had it set up. It was set up so anybody could run, anybody could win, and anybody could lead. And right now, in the last many decades, it's all been elitists. It's not working. It's been failing. And it's time for new leadership. I have the solutions from two perspectives, and that's what's necessary to get through these coming trying days that are coming up ahead of us. And I would like to ask for your vote in the August 2nd Republican primary election. My name is Scott Neely. I am running for Arizona governor. And we can do this together. Don't feel if you throw your vote at me, it's a wasted vote, or it helps the other candidate. No, don't look at it that way. You truly believe I'm the right candidate, you should vote for me. Don't vote for the other one because you think they can win. Because voting for the lesser of two evils is still evil. Don't do that. Vote for the guy who's in it for you and not in it for himself. That's me, Scott Neely. Neely for governor. Vote for me this coming Tuesday, August 2nd, in the Republican primary election. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Scott. God bless you and your family. We're going to keep you and your family in prayer and look forward to hearing from you on Victory Night. We're going to take another quick commercial break, and I'll be back with closing remarks.
On day one, as your governor, I will deploy the Arizona National Guard to the border, and I will begin construction on 3 strategic National Guard border barracks so that we can maintain a permanent presence on the Arizona-Mexico border.
Vote Neely for governor in the August 2nd primary election. Paid for by Neely for Arizona.
Welcome back to American First Patriot Podcast. Defending freedom and liberty is our motto. We put God first and politics second. I'm your Patriot host, Chauncey Brown. We were honored and blessed to have in the studio today the blue-collar worker, the concrete guy, who just wants to represent the people of Arizona. We need people in office that want to work for the people, not looking for power, for money, but want to serve the interest of the people. And that's who Scott Neely is. Scott Neely is a regular guy, understands all the problems of the people, from the homeless to the middle class, seniors, children. Scott has had a pulse on all these issues over the past year. This Arizona election is extremely important. If you want to change the directory and where it's heading, if you want to save your state, please consider voting for Scott Neely. This is American First Patriot Podcast. We're here every Monday and Wednesday, 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time to 8 o'clock. I want to thank all of our supporters and followers across all social media platforms. And I want to also thank those who have been able to donate, who are able to assist us with continuing being a voice for we the people in the nation. Please consider making your donation to American First Patriot Podcast at PayPal Me, American First Patriot Podcast, or U.S. Patriot Podcast Cash App. Your donations go a long way. We don't want to accept money from big donors because we don't want our voices to be silent. We want to hear what the candidate has to say or what I have to say without any fear of it being diluted because of the influence of corporate dollars. We will not accept any corporate money. We do this for we the people. So make sure elections are coming up. Arizona's the second. We have New York towards the end of August, also Florida. So people, please get out and vote. Get the word out. We need to be the change that the people need. Thank you all for tuning in tonight, listening to American First Patriot Podcast. And we look forward to seeing you on next Monday. Have a good night now. God bless you all and keep the faith.